So the strange thing was, Nuffield was actually available to farmers back in Zimbabwe years ago. Well, it started when it was Rhodesia, and it was always, based on selection there as well as it is here in Australia. And it was always something that I thought I may want to do at some stage, get out and see what the rest of the world's doing. Obviously, when we left Zimbabwe, we came to Australia, and we didn't really hear about it very much. And I must be honest with you, we've been fairly closed in that we haven't been out to the agricultural sort of industries and shows and conferences much. We've always been associated with Protected Cropping Australia and all their conferences. And then at one of the PCA conferences in Adelaide in 2011, another bloke who had done a Nuffield Scholarship was sitting somewhere. So in 2013, my wife said to me, I'd like to apply and see if I can do it. And I said, well, that would be perfect. At that time, I was still thinking I'm going to get into blueberries in 2013. And it was about May, June that she put her application in. And I said, well, go for it. Try and see if you can get it on the basis of doing hydroponic blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. It's something we were interested in, and let's see if we can get some information. Because we feel that sometimes the information within the hydroponic and greenhouse industry and those crops, if they're not grown extensively here, is going to be pretty difficult to find out. So let's go overseas and find out. So she got her scholarship for the 2014 year, and obviously she's been traveling quite extensively. When she was away, I thought, well, if she's away and she's got one, I might just try and see if I can get one as well. She got it based on blueberry, raspberry, strawberry, blackberry, hydroponic greenhouse production. I thought, well, if I can try and do something on integrated pest management, because one of the things I am worried about is obviously it's got an edible skin. And so if we are spraying nasty stuff, that residual period and the withholding periods and so on. And in the roses, through Stephen Goodwin and Marilyn Steiner, and obviously the likes of Len as well on the pathology side, we've always tried to spray as little chemical as possible. So we're always trying to use the beneficials that we can. So whether it's Persimilis, for example, for two-spotted mite, or Aphidius colmani for aphids, we've got a bit of an aphid outbreak at the moment, or Aureus humatus for some of our thrip. All those sort of beneficials, trying to use more of the oils, trying to use more of bicarbonates, trying to use more silicates and so on. So I decided to apply through Nuffield and thankfully got through as well. I guess at the end of the day, the basis to Nuffield is they're trying to build capacity here in Australia, and they're also trying to build diversity within the organisation as well. So I think primarily it used to be for sort of the cereal growers, the cotton growers, some of the beef producers, some of the dairy producers, but now they're finding that there's a lot more diversity out there, and there's a lot of people who are either in aquaculture or hydroponic vegetable or fruit production or flower production. So I've certainly noticed over the last 4 or 5 years that there's been a lot more applications based around the horticultural industry. What it basically allows me to do is for 1 week we get all the scholars around the world, so all the scholars involved in Nuffield, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Ireland, Canada, New Zealand, France, the Netherlands. We had a scholar from Brazil this year. We all converge in one single location, and changes every year. So this year we were fortunate enough to have gone to Reims in France. Reims? Not sure how they say it, but we all converge there, and you just basically have a week of just intensive deliveries by all sorts of researchers, all sorts of people involved in government, policy makers, past scholars, and it's just delivery of what's happening in the world, what we should be considering, how we're going to feed the world, how we're going to improve distribution, better genetics, better genomics, climate change. I'm trying to think of biofuels. It's incredible the diversity of topics that are covered, and you're just bombarded with all these things, and you have discussion groups, and you have to make little presentations at the end of each day on what you found, what you've gleaned, and what you thought was interesting, or what you disagreed with, and so on. And then after that week, you go back to your countries, and then you come back again for a 6-week tour, and there are a number of tours that you can go on. So the tour that I selected was Singapore, Indonesia, Japan, Israel, the Netherlands, and USA, and that's over 6 weeks. And you travel with 6 other scholars, and they may be in any of the other industries. So I was traveling with 3 poultry producers, a dairy farmer, and a cereal producer. So it doesn't matter who's in the group. And once again, you get to see a large diversity of businesses. We went to a lot of Australian embassies. We met with all sorts of people, research centers, people involved in manufacturing of machinery, people involved in crops like hemp or green tea in Japan, bananas. We did heaps of poultry, lots of dairies. So again, it gives you a real sense of how other businesses are run, what their issues are, and most of the time the issues are very, very common to us. And again, just to get a little bit more perspective on what other businesses are doing, as opposed to just focusing simply on what I'm doing, trying to find out about dairy, trying to find out about poultry production, so that when there are issues with the milk price or animal welfare issues with chickens, at least as a scholar, I'm a little bit better. I have more knowledge, and I'm a little bit better prepared to try and defend those people and to try and promote how important agriculture is and how we are trying to feed the world. And we're not necessarily a bunch of cowboys just out there doing it with the nastiest chemicals and with the least sensitivity to those animals or to labor and all the rest of it. So for me, it's given me a much more global perspective on what's going on out there. I'm certainly very proud of where we're at in terms of Australia and the fact that we produce a very safe product. Obviously, we are heavily regulated here in terms of what we apply to our crops, whereas I question some of those countries and how they can even state that they're organic producers. There's more plastic and more chemical containers around some of their yards, and they say that they're 100% organic. So that part of it is just to try and get a broad perspective of agriculture. Then you come back to Australia, and then you plan your own personal travel. And when you plan your personal travel, you're then on your lonesome, and you now go to research centres or universities or growers, and you basically have to do all that hard yards and organisation. So the Contemporary Scholars Conference is organised for you, and the Global Focus Program, which is the 6-week tour, is organised for you, and you have to stick to that format. But after that, after you've completed that, and that generally takes 8 weeks, you're then expected to do another minimum 8 weeks of what we call private study. So it's a 16-week program, minimum 16. You can go much longer. There's some scholars who've been travelling for 4 months. Obviously, once the money runs out, well, then obviously you've got to dig a little bit deeper. And you can travel literally anywhere in the world. Obviously, we just need to notify Nuffield in Australia of where we're going and what our intentions are. And obviously, we have to try and behave and extend ourselves as well. One of the things I believe Nuffield also offers the rest of the world is an opportunity for us to share our information, what we do, how we do it, what our recommendations are. So a lot of people are very interested in hydroponic blueberries in Japan. So it was an ideal opportunity for me to sit there and talk to them and let them know how I do it.
Okay, so that's part of the program. So
absolutely,
when you go
everything
over,
must be reciprocal. It's not just about me gleaning the information and then writing my notes. It's also about offering something back to those people.
So what about within Australia? So once you glean whatever information you can, what do you then do?
Okay, so most of us have an investor. That's the person who sponsored us through Nuffield. Yep. So for example, Horticulture Innovation Australia are our sponsors. So we're expected to be at their disposal, so to speak. So if they want us to present at a conference, or they want us to talk to a certain farming group, or they want us to present to government, then we are obliged to stand up there and say, well, this is what I've learned, and this is what I've gleaned, and this is what I recommend for Australia. Also, Nuffield have that opportunity as well, and they also offer our services to, for example, Bears and Department of Agriculture. Nikki spoke in Canberra a couple of weeks ago. Sorry, this is Nikki, by the way, my wife. Yeah, so you may be asked to speak for the next sort of 2 to 3 years at many of these conferences. You also sometimes asked to speak overseas. So there are Nuffield scholars from 2006, 2007, 2008 who've gone to the World Food Summit, G20 Summit, Rabobank summits. So it really is quite amazing.